everybody. My name is Hugh Blane and I'm the president of Claris Consulting, and this is my video blog. A video blog where we take the sometimes often esoteric world of management consulting and put it into real terms for real people so that they can go about getting real results. And today I have the distinct pleasure of being with Dr. Vergil Metts. Dr. Metts is the president and CEO of Impact Associates in Knoxville, Tennessee, and he is a very well-known expert in the areas of emotional intelligence and change management. And I've spent the last 2 days with Dr. Metts becoming certified in one of his courses called the 7 Deadly Sins of Change. And so we're going to have 7 separate video blogs that you can watch about those sins. And this is just going to be a conversation about the 7 sins, and we're going to jump in there. So first of all, thanks for being here.
Well, thanks for having me. It's
You're
good to be here.
My pleasure. Can you tell me a little bit about, so why did you go about creating content around the 7 Deadly Sins?
Well, there are a lot of approaches to change out there, and models for change, and they're all pretty effective. And they outline ways to go about the process to get meaningful change.
Right.
But in the work that we've done in change management over time, we've noticed there are some pretty consistent ways that people get off track, some mistakes that they make, and if they can avoid those mistakes, they can be successful in a conscious management of organizational transitions.
Okay.
So we came up with what we call the 7 Deadly Sins of Change, and some ways to avoid those. So that's where it comes from.
Okay. Well, so let's jump in. So we'll see whether or not I actually remembered everything. So the 7 deadly sins are complacency, reactivity, technocentrism, arrogance, manipulation, isolation, and mushrooming.
Very good.
Yes, because I couldn't do that yesterday. My mind was totally mush. So let's do this. Let's talk about the first deadly sin. Let's talk about complacency. So tell me a little bit about complacency.
Okay. Complacency, as John Cotter points out in his work on change management, is really one of the biggest enemies of change in an organization.
Right.
And people get comfortable with the status quo and lack a sense of urgency in change. And without that energy around change that's going to push them in the direction of something new, change just doesn't happen very effectively.
So is that just a human trait for people to become complacent, or is it an organizational trait that they also get complacent?
Well, I would say it's a human trait that gets translated into organizational behavior.
Right.
And we get in our comfort zone.
Right.
We don't want to step out of that and become complacent. As a friend of mine once said, one of the biggest barriers to future greatness is current success.
Right. So what are the implications for an organization if they have a complacent culture?
Well, if they have a complacent culture, they're going to have a very difficult time evolving with the demands of the marketplace or to change to meet new business strategies. So they tend to get kind of stuck in the way we've always done it,
Right.
which for some organizations can work. For most, they find
So
it
you want to
doesn't.
be able, there are some things you want to be able to preserve because they're worth preserving.
Because they work. You don't want to change just for the sake of changing.
So if complacency has that negative a consequence for individuals and organizations, what should we do to address complacency?
Well, again, as John Cotter says, the thing you got to do is create a sense of urgency.
Right.
There are a number of ways you can do that. Urgency can come about from some crisis or perceived crisis that you have to get away from.
Right.
Urgency can come about from something that's so positive out there in the future that people feel like they have to get it. It can also be around accountability. One thing I see is that very often people aren't accountable for change. We always tell people there's one steadfast rule in the world of consulting, and in an organization you always get the results you reward. And if you're not rewarding and holding people accountable for new behavior, they tend to stay with the old behavior. You have to look at the subtle influences there on how behavior is rewarded.
So that has huge implications for leadership and also for the management of our teams and individuals. I mean, those are fairly extensive implications.
Yes.
Yeah.
And things like, a lot of time complacency comes about because people don't want to make waves, or they're afraid to make waves. Well, leadership has a role in that.
Right.
Does the culture support people doing something new, bringing different ideas? Is it safe to do that in the culture?
So that's one of the things that we're trying to do with these video blogs, is to bring new ideas into people's consciousness and to bring them into, just to make you aware of some new ideas. So we're going to stop here for the first sin, which we've taken about maybe 4.5 minutes to do that. And the second sin, if we've done a good job, you'll come back and you'll learn more about the second sin, which is reactivity. So we'll see you in a minute.